Viewers versus customers. Today we're talking about how to change your viewers, transform your viewers into customers, or the difference between YouTube viewers and YouTube customers. I'm Dane Golden from the Video Marketing Business Academy, and I'm here with Shelly Saves the Day. Welcome, Shelly.
Hello, and hello to everyone out there listening and in video.
And yeah, talking in the chat. And Shelly, tell us a little bit about all the crazy things that you do in this video world of ours.
In this crazy video world, I don't know. Are you talking about me personally, like speaking and
Yeah, speaking,
podcasting and
channels, Amazon. Just give us a
Amazon
rundown of all these great
influencer?
things you do.
Yeah, I've been doing some conference speaking lately. I was a speaker at Vid Summit. I'll be speaking at PodFest/VidFest here at the end of May. And I've also been on a bunch of podcasts recently, but none as awesome as ours.
Sure.
But recently I've been doing that. So I've just been busy. And then a lot with Amazon Influencer Program as well.
Yeah, so tell us the names of some of your channels and platforms.
So if you were to search for my shop on Amazon, it would be under the influencers under Shelly Nathan. And then if you were to look for conference speaking and everything, it's all under Shelly Saves the Day, which is my YouTube channel, which I changed my banner today.
Oh, big banner
I'm
day.
thinking you could take a little peek, but it's now YouTube advice from a realistic introvert or something like that, because I am extremely introverted, but a lot of people still appreciate what I have to say about YouTube and education. So
And
I
you're
think it's
realistic.
YouTube education from a realistic introvert. So you can find me on under Shelly Saves the Day on YouTube as well.
And our topic today, YouTube viewers versus customers. Shelly, is a viewer the same thing as a customer?
It could be. But I think one thing that we really need to focus and hone in on, that a lot of brands and businesses are supposed to get right at the very beginning, is really cluing in on who their ideal viewer or that account avatar that they're going after. And I think sometimes that is taught for YouTube creators, but it's really hopefully dialed in with brands and businesses. So a lot of the time we have two very different psychographics and mindsets that a lot of these viewers are coming to YouTube with. If it's, in the midst of education and learning about something, then it could be a different mindset than the person who's frustrated with your, let's say, software as a service, and they're trying to find an answer as to how to do something, how to fix something is broken and it's not working. So they're already a little bit more agitated. So what is the tone of that video versus a regular video, or the ones in the beginning where you're trying to encourage them to begin or have, sign up for your service,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I think, different than sometimes a content creator whose main purpose a lot of the time is to educate or, bring them in with like clickbaity type titles. And I don't think in the business world that happens as much, because it's really about trying to help serve the customer with where they are in their journey along the, buying map right then.
Yeah, yeah. And we we get on this hamster wheel on social media or YouTube, and we look for views and we look for subscribers. We talked about previous podcasts like why, what's the value, why should you do it? But then, what about a viewer? How many viewers are actually going to turn into customers? How do we create our content in ways that attract the type of customers? I think that a good way to start thinking about this, and we do this with our clients, is who do you think your customer is? Not who is it? Like people say, oh, it's everybody, everyone
Yeah.
drinks water and we sell water. But I think maybe for a lot of companies, it's not everyone. And so, and in particular, when you get someone who's not your customer watching your video, it doesn't really add a ton of value. There may be some sort of value in getting, ton of views, and people say, well, this person gets a lot of views and subscribers, so they must be valuable, so I'll do business with them. And there is something to that. But when you think about, hey, I want to really create content that's going to bring in potential customers, you really got to ask yourself, who is that customer? And is it someone who's man, woman, adult, kid, married, not married, children, live in the United States, live in another country? What other types of things might we think about when we think about who our potential customer is?
I'm so glad that you mentioned this because now we're getting into some of the meat and potatoes around, the psychographics and the demographics, which a lot of people kind of glaze over a lot of the time. And if you really want to get in deep with understanding your ideal client avatar, customer avatar, this is the difference because I've used this example before, but I love it. But you've got like Ozzy Osbourne versus like Prince William. And if
Uh-huh.
you look on the surface, they're both, let's say, white men in their 60s, both married for the second time and divorced, and they're both British. But if you think about the difference between like Ozzy Osbourne and Prince William, they're living very different lives. But if you were only looking at the demographic surface level type of stats, you would think we should market or perhaps even send an advertisement to all of these same people, right? And I think you and I can definitely grasp they are not the same person. We've got like
Right.
societal pressures and we've got like the patriarchy and the monarchy, literally. And so, when we start talking about like, do they do their own grocery shopping? What stores would they be going to? This is not a life that a lot of people are going to be leading. So they have a very different set of needs, either of them versus any other person, right? So if you can kind of start to think about your customers this way as well, it's, not just a plumbing company. It's, are you servicing apartments? Are you servicing like single family homes? Or are you focusing on other types of places like septic or city, or because all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden then you have all of these differential things that you would be talking about and the ways that you would be structuring your videos based on who you think is going to be watching it or who needs your service. So that's one of the best ways I can describe it. So once you understand your ICA that well, where you're like, I know where
ICA.
she shops, ideal client avatar or customer
Okay.
avatar. I know where, if it's a he or she, right? I know where she shops. I know what drives her. I know what angers her in her day to day life. And you make those videos with her in mind, going back to that one on one connection, sometimes with that one person in mind. I think a lot of the time, those brands and businesses will find that they're not chasing after the most views, they're chasing after the view that's most targeted to that person.
And you really dropped some knowledge bombs there. I will disagree with one thing.
Okay.
You said Prince William. I think you meant Prince Charles.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, Prince Charles. You're totally correct. Yes.
But Prince William, also, he has his own demographic of one as well.
Yes.
So I think
Absolutely.
a lot when I'm making my YouTube channel, I think of, targeting businesses that want to get into YouTube or entrepreneurs. What I generally think the people are, there's a huge number of people who want to know how to do better on YouTube who are not my customer. And I might say those would be gamers,
Yep.
beauty influencers,
Food influencers.
yeah, food influencers, a whole bunch of people that are not really target because I see them as they're a business. I mean, they want to make money through influencing. So they are a business in a sense, but not the type of business I'm targeting.
Right. Your people
So
are selling usually goods and services or, software, and maybe not so much the lifestyle and like the imagery of the, travel vlogger. Even though she's or he is still a business, it's not the same because you're not driving an end-to-end connection with someone who's trying to, like the travel agent would be more of a client than the travel influencer.
exactly, yeah. And so I like to think, and I like to help clients think who's not going to be your customer, and then who's your best customer. And you start to see it sometimes through the demographics in your YouTube analytics, which may or may not be who you're shooting for, but gender is one way, and nationality and age. Those three things really start to see what types of things, what type of group you're talking to, and then you start to see what type of content they want. And if you want to
Yeah.
stick with that content, now you're starting to see the types of interest and things. And you can go further down and you can look at the YouTube relative audience retention. We don't talk about this much, but audience retention is what every video has in the analytics, and it'll tell you, where people are dropping off. But there's also something called relative audience retention. And you'll see these weird peaks sometimes when it compares to every other video around the world. and it says, "People really liked it when you were riding your bike and you fell off," or something like that, whatever that thing is, or when you were cooking and, you showed how you blend the something something. And so
Yeah.
those things you start to learn about the micro things and in the comments, etc., of what your customers are really interested in. So then you have to think about, okay, well, what types of content is that person going to be interested in? I did some research just yesterday about what recruiters would be looking for. Tech recruiters, what would they be looking for? Because I thought of a business angle that I could help with tech recruiters because they need help.
Mhm.
So I was like, you know what, there might be something I can do to help them, but what are they looking for? So I did a lot of searches as to, terms, and I narrowed down. And the thing is that there may be some broad terms like the Great Resignation, but you know what? I don't think that recruiters are going to be looking up things like the Great Resignation. They're going to be niching down into things that they're specializing in, these jargon terms and things like that. So then once you think about that jargon that people are on the inside are thinking about, now you're really drilling down into things that your customer really might be interested in learning about. And I found some, just curious things that HR people and people that manage recruiting, those buzzwords that they love to use. But once you start making content for that, attract somebody who'd be interested in what that buzzword is doing, now you're really onto something. For me, if somebody did a video about relative audience retention, I'd be all over that. I'm the customer for that, right? So you start thinking about the type of content that people um, would attract them, right? So do you agree with that and want to add onto that?
I think one of the categories that I would also add, geographic location. That
Hmm.
can be an additional one. But I think it's so fascinating that you said the stuff about technical recruiters
Yeah,
because, as someone who kind of has come from that world a little bit as well, there's a lot to unpack there. Because if you think about even the difference between some of the FANG companies, that's going to be, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, um, and Meta, and all of that. And then you think about the life of and the personalities of all of the different FANG companies, main companies now. And then you even compare that and contrast against startups. And then once you start doing recruiting, whether it's a person who is 40 or 50 and looking to make their final maybe move to go 10 years before their like retirement, someone who's 22 and fresh out of like college, someone who's like midlife change coming out of a boot camp, all of them are all going to be working at the same companies or doing the same type of job, but the range of the benefits and things that are important to each extremely different, right? So you've got someone who is maybe about to start a family, or you've got someone who is willing to move anywhere in the world because they're young and unattached, or you've got someone who is drowning in student debt and is only going after the highest dollar amount, so doesn't mind putting in all of these hours because they got to get
sure.
out of debt, or they're supporting family sometimes in other countries and sending money back. So if you even also started to categorize something like that, but it's if you think about it, everyone is going into the same pool of people, but they're all vastly different in what they need to be able to go work at any of these companies. Even that itself is a huge responsibility and exercise in being able to correctly identify, or conversely, then attract and not attract the right people. So a lot of companies are trying to up their DE and I, or diversity, equity, inclusion type of stuff, or you know, and then they have to start looking at our recruiting practices, our hiring practices, our firing practices in line with certain things, or out of line because, or have all of these microaggressions like built in, and even being able to think about that and then have change around that, but focus your conversations on that type of intended audience. I think it's really, really powerful stuff. Doesn't matter the industry, but that one was just fascinating because you brought that
Yeah.
up.
No, because, every different industry, there's buzzwords, there's and for if you're in the market for a product or a service, you start learning the buzzwords, like shopping for a backpack, you think of ripstop nylon, right? I think it's called a ripstop nylon, I think. things like that. You're like, oh, well, it has that, and this one doesn't have that. And that helps you make your buying decision. So, is everyone that's going to come in and watch your videos, is everyone a potential customer?
No. I don't think
They're
I don't
not.
think they are. I'm thinking about this and, let's say you're working for company A, and really the person who's watching it is competitor B, you know?
Sure, competitors.
They are not looking to be swayed into buying something. They're looking for the differential, delta between what makes your company or their company better, or, you'd be like, "Oh, you may have this feature, but we've got this and it's better, and this
Mhm.
is why." So they're actually doing it with the intent of never being a customer, but actually to use it against you later. So I think there are going to be instances like that, where people are not looking to become customers, but they're still going to get educated, hopefully in a fun and entertaining way.
And what about, so many great pieces of content now, they don't actually directly sell what the company is doing, but they give away their expertise in the effort to try to attract you to pay for better expertise, for more in-depth
Mm,
information, a
yep,
coaching, a service.
yep.
Um, we will tell you about the HubSpot platform, but we also are specialists in the HubSpot platform. So if you really want to up your game, then you should do business with us, right?
And in fact, I think some of them make it intentionally complicated. So let's say you're working as a consultant for ClickUp. You could show them how to go in and push some buttons, but what you would probably smartly do is be like, I'm going to apply this template. And someone's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean apply templates? Or like, and this is a template that I created myself. And all of a sudden now you've built this credibility of like, oh, they really know what they're doing with ClickUp and I don't. So you either then can make people upset and then they don't want to watch because they don't feel included, or you can be
Mhm.
like, I can help you get your ClickUp under control. So you need to contact me, which is kind of asserting your dominance in a way in a video form, and then assuring them that you can bring them back, off the precipice of like despair
Right.
because of
And
your
even,
expertise.
you know, even if it is easy, even if it's technically pretty easy, and even if the information's publicly available already, like I'm sure if I was interested in building my own airplane, there are many places I could go to get the information on how to build an airplane. And with enough budget, I could build an airplane and try to fly it. Might not be legal, but I could try to fly it, right?
Right.
Should I?
Well, it depends. Is your destination to just fly the one time and then crash, or is it to actually go a distance, or is it to I don't
and,
know.
and I think that that's really says a lot about how we can do content better is give it away. And I think a lot of people, we have this dichotomy in our heads. We believe that we're only one Google search or YouTube search away from knowing any piece of information. It's only one search away. And yet, on the other hand, we know that some things take specialties. And sometimes it's only by someone showing us how to do it or introducing us how to do something that we know that we shouldn't do it.
Yeah, perhaps like watching someone have a nose job, like a rhinoplasty video, or watching someone like sew up stitches. And you're like, I could technically do that because I once hand threaded something, but like I know that I don't have the expertise for it, but I understand the concept of it. That's one of those examples. Like I can understand what you're doing, but you don't have the 30 years of like experience in doing that quickly on the fly, like as a doctor does.
Or, just for instance, I know someone whose company helps other companies manage Microsoft Teams. Well, that's all great. It is doable. You can hire someone, you can do it internally, they can show you a lot of information. But if that person isn't 100% right, who can imagine all of the problems you could have from only getting 80% of your emails?
Yeah. Yeah.
Only getting 80% of your calendar meetings, only closing 80% of the deals you need to close, whatever. It's just not something you want to trust to somebody who just knows most of it.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that is also telling is a lot of the time when people go to the internet for an answer, they're in the throes of like, my basement is flooding and I don't know what to do and I need this solved now. My car battery is dead and I need to learn how to jump it with jumper cables and
Yeah.
I need to do that now, right? So they're not looking for the most um, it's interesting when they go in because they're looking for the shortest video, then they get frustrated when it isn't what they want, and then they go find the next video and they fumble through it. And even if then someone's video is good enough, like that 80%, they're not going to remember them and they're not going to come back. Versus someone who is meticulously planning and going through the process and comparing and contrasting all of their options, which is what we're hoping that sometimes our customers are doing, right? We don't want them to call us in a fit of desperation. We want them to come to this natural conclusion that our company or product or service is the natural born conclusion at the end of an educational period. So I think even that can then tend to dictate how the tone and pace of a video might be if you were creating a playlist of thinking of, getting ClickUp for your company. These are the questions that you'd probably have and ask versus the person who went and bought a ClickUp expert to set it up and now they don't understand how to use a template.
Yeah, because that last 10 or 15% of doing almost anything in this world can be a business killer. And
Mhm.
you get stopped 85% of the way with anything, and that last 85% can take months or just create cascading errors that you never figure out with almost anything. I'll tell you one. Not a lot of people like their dentist. I had this dentist that I loved. He was a professor at the university. This is when I lived in San Francisco, professor at UCSF, always, very highly thought of with the students. And he had this side practice with not a few, just a few customers that he did on the side just to keep his hand in things. And he really brought the idea of what goes on in this part of your face to life. He could really describe it in such a captivating way, and it just was so genial. And he would walk you through, well, we do this because of this, and he took the time and he explained it. I'm not going to do my own dentistry, but I felt more comfortable that he knew what he was doing. A lot of professors don't, are bad professors. Just because he was a professor doesn't mean he was good. But because he walked me through it, and I think the same thing we think of when we talk to a mechanic, a doctor, someone doing your website. You don't need to know how to do it. You need to know that they know how to
They
do
know
it.
how to do it. Right.
What do you think about that?
I absolutely believe that. And on the flip side, I will say
Mhm.
sometimes people put too much trust and they kind of wash their hands of something and be like, you do
Sure.
it, you set it up, you do it. And I would caution that sometimes you still want to know a little bit about the thing. So
Mhm.
if you're someone who is about to hire your first video editor and someone quotes you, 8 hours for editing a YouTube short, which is literally under 60 seconds or so. If you don't know any better about how to edit or import or export or anything, you could absolutely end up with some bad apples that take advantage of you. And then you get soured on the entire thing because you didn't have a general, even wherewithal knowledge, little bitty bit of knowledge about the thing before you just trusted blindly and opened your wallet. So I
But we
think a
can
healthy
become
amount of skepticism sometimes.
better customers, better educated customers by watching the people we do business with do the thing we're asking them that we're going to pay them. We know we're going to pay them to do it.
Mhm.
But we
Absolutely.
can watch them show us how to do it, and we become better customers, ask better questions, and can compare this service provider with another service provider. But I know that with almost every YouTube video, because it's just the law of averages, 95%, 90%, 80%, some huge number, majority are never going to become customers. And
Yes.
should that stop us from doing YouTube entirely?
No.
Why not? It's just a
Um,
waste. There's a whole
I mean,
bunch of people that are not doing it. Why? Why should we do it?
well, I mean, even if every person who watched your videos actually signed up for your service, you may even have a capacity issue. So that could be a problem
That's
and you
true.
don't know how to scale. But and if actually something like that happens, let that be a reminder and lesson to you that you can then not only are you in demand, you're sought after as an expert, but that just means you can be more selective about the clients you take and raise your prices. So I mean that's good feedback as well. But I think that just because someone isn't going to watch it or isn't going to watch it with the intended and expected outcome, it doesn't mean that just because they didn't end up to be the ideal client avatar, that the next time someone needs an expert in X field, that your name wouldn't pop up to the top of the list, or you're going to
Right.
become a speaker, or you're going to become a well known expert, and you're going to be on a podcast because someone mentioned you and they overheard about this thing. It's like, oh, I know someone who does that. So, I mean, there are repercussions or rewards after that, even for someone who never becomes a customer. Just having that positive word of mouth and getting another opportunity to talk on another stage or be on another podcast or make another video collaboration could come from someone who has never had any intention of becoming your customer, but they can still be your advocate.
Yeah, that leaves us to the other group of people, and you're probably similar to me in that you may watch a whole ton of, you might get this excited about one type of technology or one trick to doing something, and you're like, watch a whole bunch of videos on it, and you're like, "Oh, this doesn't work well at all. This is like a big time sink. I don't wanna do this, and in fact, I don't wanna even hire somebody. It's the wrong service for me."
Yep.
I was at the top of the funnel, meaning I was in the introductory customer who was determining not just if this was the right company, but if this is the right solution. Or if I have, even if I have this problem. Sometimes you don't even know if you have the problem until you see somebody try to make the solution. So I would say those people fall under the potential customer group, but you've saved a lot of time as a business actually turning them away by making a video that says, "Don't come over here," because that was not going to be a good client for you.
And the customer satisfaction, right, of the people who do figure out that it's the right service, product, or brand for them is going to be higher. You're not going to have to spend as much time with the people who are upset that, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and they thought this was the the solution. And if you're able to illustrate this is not, you don't have to spend as much, let's say, even on customer service because they're not handling as many complaints from people who were thinking that they were sold something that was going to fit a solution for them that isn't. So, I mean, you could have
Right.
just higher customer satisfaction all over the place.
Now, I do want to read a couple of comments from the chat. Sinal said, "So how do you show that you're the expert to get your viewers to switch to customers and to truly invest in you and trust you?" And Milton Kraft said, "It is always good to know at least the basics of what you're investing in." But back to Sinal, how do you show that you're the expert to get them to really trust you, not just watch your videos? How do you get the potential customer to say, "I trust this person"? What's the nature of trust and how are we doing it on YouTube?
Well, if you think about YouTube, let's say, and you think about where a lot of people, and it's going someplace, trust me, but
Hmm,
online dating, okay?
yeah,
You have an initial thumbnail of a person if you're
okay,
swiping directions, let's say, and that has to be enough to intrigue you. But you wouldn't then go on a first date or start texting with someone and be like, hey, should we lock this thing down and get married?
right.
Right? You'd be like, maybe let's have coffee. Maybe
Mhm.
let's take a road trip together. Maybe let's meet the parents. Let's have some holidays, right? And a
There's
lot of that
steps.
comes, right? There's a lot of steps that come to it. And I think one of the biggest turnoffs would be showing up to a first date, let's say, and having the person be like, I'm your future husband or future wife or future whatever. And right, a lot of the time, how do you build a relationship and trust with anyone? It's repeated exposures over time where people do what they say that they're going to do, be where they're going to be, and actually make you either feel good about yourself, make you feel wanted, make you feel educated, make you feel like assertive and actually capable. It's the same thing. So if you want people to refer to you or think of you as an expert, one of the worst things that you can do out there is like, I know everything. Because a lot of the time, the experts are always still students. They're
So you should
still
show
learning.
vulnerability, or that
You could. I mean, for some people that may be too much for them, but I think an open, honest, and willing to take feedback is still going to be something that is vulnerability in itself, but it's going to be repeated exposures where it's helpful, and it's a lot of that jab jab right hook where it's a lot of give value, give value, give value without expectation in the end later, then ask for something after you have a relationship. I, as a side
yes.
note, sorry, it is gonna come
Yeah,
back to
let's
it, I
do it.
swear.
Let's do it.
Today, I'm so proud of, I don't know if I should name names, but my friend who is a YouTube person, and she is in the real estate space.
Mhm.
And we've been talking behind the scenes, like, oh,
Yeah.
I've been thinking about creating like a little mini course about thumbnails because her thumbnails are really great in her
Yeah.
type of genre and niche.
Mhm.
And I was like, you should do it. I will help you. We can do it as a Zoom call. We can do it over a certain amount of weeks. And then it was radio silence for a while. It was great, great, great. And then a couple days ago, I'm like, are we doing this? Let's push it on over the edge. And so she's like, I'm scared. I'm not sure. And she's like, but I'm pretty sure that if I post it in my Facebook group, which I think we should talk about one of these days about owning groups in your audiences, some
Mhm.
places. And she's like, if I post it in my Facebook group, I believe that we would sell out probably in 3 hours. And we're going to do a small beta. And I was like, what, push the button. What are you waiting for? She sold out in 10 minutes.
Oh my.
This morning. This was today.
Oh
So we were
my.
talking this morning and we were like, oh, what's the wording on this going to be? 10 minutes she sold out of this. And people are like, the wait list. Can we, do you see this? This is the power of is the expert, but she did say, this is what you're going to get. You've seen my performance. She doesn't need to hype it all up. She didn't have to go out there with a huge, long, like, I'm the best. She was like,
Mhm.
this is what I'm offering. If you guys want to do it, this is the price or your investment.
Mhm.
10 minutes. 10 minutes it sold out with an audience that trusts her. There you go.
Mhm.
I thought that's an amazing example. I was just
I
like,
think it's
wow, I was so
fantastic.
proud. I was just like, are you kidding
Congratulations.
me? So she made the post in her group, and then like 10 minutes later, she had to be like, I'm sorry, we're sold out. Like, anyone who missed it, I'm sorry. And everyone was like, I just saw this.
That's wonderful. And I wanted to ask, so what I think happens on Facebook, YouTube, as opposed to Facebook or other social media platforms, is that people creating content really think of it and approach it a little bit more from a one to many approach instead of thinking about YouTube as a one to one communication. So we don't do as much about, you know, encouraging and monitoring and engaging in the comments and getting more comments and doing those types of things. And what happens for YouTube channels, and I see this again and again, is that companies, they finally rally and say, we're going to do it. And then they do it they really put all their efforts in for a while. But the thing about a lot of businesses is that sales don't happen the same week you
Immediately.
see a YouTube
Yeah.
video. And what they're not seeing as much is that they're gradually building this very, very strong bond between the presenter or the person who owns the channel and the viewer. And the viewer feels this strong connection, but they just may not be commenting a lot. And since they may be moving down the funnel without the person knowing it. They're qualified, and before a lot of those customers start to happen, the business says, well, it's not going as well as we'd hoped. Let's
Let's
change
pull the plug.
course. Either
Yeah.
stop, change course. Facebook is better, whatever. Do you see that happen? Do you hear about that? That just YouTube is just, it takes a while and you're just not seeing those incremental feedback along the way?
I think it is difficult because with a lot of brands and businesses, you do see an immediate effect of advertising, let's say, whether it's
Mhm,
a radio ad or a Google ad or a, whatever else, Facebook specific. There are the analytics directly in your face that are showing you this many people clicked on it and this many people clicked the link. When it comes to YouTube, it really is that slow burn of evergreen content because a lot of the time, what your brand or business does is going to be an evergreen type of thing. So people may not have that immediate need to do it, but they still need it. And also, you have to building that trust, that know, like, and trust factor with people, which does take time and many touches. If it's going to be a month, let's say, of putting out valuable content before you ever get to a video that asks for something in return,
mhm,
you're 3 weeks and 5 days too late when it comes to an Instagram ad. And so I think it is
right,
really difficult because you have to have that upfront conversation. What does it look like when you're building out the YouTube channel, right? What are those first videos going to look like? What is that relationship with the viewer going to look like over time? And I think that that's where a lot of brands and business get it wrong because they see, Vangirl make one video and get a million subscribers overnight with one video. And they're like, oh, I put out one video about my, plumbing service and my phone didn't ring just yet. And I'm like,
mhm.
that's not exactly the same.
So what can we do to both foster that relationship and also just know that that relationship is occurring even if we don't see the faces that are all the faces that are watching or tuning in? What types of triggers can we do? I said comments. Are there ways of
Yeah.
doing comments, likes, emails? Could you talk a little bit about some of the ways we can do that, at least just to know, hey, somebody's out there and what's more valuable?
I mean, interaction is valuable because the more that people interact with your posts and videos, the more that they will get shown them again in the future. When they're
Mhm,
getting positive signals from YouTube, let's say that they're liking, they're commenting, they're subscribing, they're staying throughout the entire duration of the video, those are all positive signs to YouTube that they should keep putting this content in front of this person. And like we said, with repeated touch and exposure, just like a television advertisement where you typically need to see it like 4 or 5 times to even remember one that you've seen it, sometimes 10 times or double digits to actually be able to get
right.
off that edge to purchase or something. And then even then you can be like, what was that thing? What was it? And even though you've seen the commercial 10 times, you're like, I know there's a thing that does that what I want to do. So it's interesting that people put so much into one YouTube video where
Can
we have
I
to build this library. Yeah.
can I interrupt you for a second and say you and I know YouTube analytics, and we can even show someone YouTube analytics and we say, look, more people are doing this, more people are finding you and they're coming back.
Mhm.
Look at this graph. But you know what? I think that you can thousands of views are not as important as just one commenter.
Or a telephone call or
Just
a
one person in the
yeah.
comments going, "Yay!" And I think it has a more of a visceral appeal to even people who are very, numerically minded. What do you think about that? Do we feel differently about just somebody commenting and saying, "Nice job," or "I liked it," versus a rising graph to the right of views or subscribers or whatever?
I think one thing that's kind of fun too, if you're looking to build that relationship and drive sometimes longevity, is a lot of brands and businesses think they have to be perfect. And so they seem to always omit like the blunders, the bloopers,
Mhm,
the kind of funny parts, which I think a lot of people should keep in, or the quick, easy call to action at the end, like, hey, are you still watching? Anything that's kind of silly and simple, like, you know, if you're still here, comment this number down below so I know you made it this far in the video. Even if
mhm.
it's just a graphic and they didn't actually say it visually, when you see that comment down below that says, "Oh, I saw the number 89," and something like that,
That's fun.
it's fun, right? Or I used to do stuff where it'd be like, "Hey, my favorite comment of the last video was this. So if you want to, potentially be featured as a comment on screen, which people love to see in the next video, make sure you comment on this one, or something like that, where it's building that habitual behavior with your viewers. Oh, if I comment, they're going to see it. Not only that, but they might put it on screen. Or, oh, if I watch later into this video, I might be rewarded with a blooper, or I might actually get like the secret word of the day. And I put enough secret word of the days together and I can get entered into a drawing for a giveaway. I've seen people do that. So there are lots of different ways to help encourage that like longevity of a viewer. But I think that being able to see that relationship grow is going to be very rewarding, not only for the creators who are doing it, but for the brands and businesses. Cause you may have something snuck into the end, like, hey, if you made it this far in the video, for Easter weekend, we're throwing this special. You can use this code and save a little bit of extra money because we appreciate you as a viewer. Even if you're not, let's say, a customer, you're like, oh my gosh, they did this. This is a cool promotion. If you are someone who is maybe about to buy that brand or service, you might be like, dude, this is cool. If I watch more of their videos, I might actually, or you might have just, convinced one person to hit the button and schedule something or buy something, which is great.
That's something I haven't heard, or maybe I just heard a little bit about it, like, if you're still watching, comment this number in the video or something like that.
Oh, I've done that for years.
You
Like sometimes
have?
you'll see it. Yeah, I'll be like,
I guess I
hey,
only watched to the point before on your
right. You
videos.
didn't make it that far, Dave. I'll be like, hey, if you're still here right now, comment how many likes this video has, or comment what city you're watching from it, and something very simple like that, which has nothing to do with the content of the video. Sometimes
Right.
encourages people to actually participate versus something like, what was your biggest takeaway? Comment it down below. And people don't like, I don't need a school lesson, but if it's something like, tell me like how hot it got today where you are. And someone's like, it's 58 degrees in Minnesota or something. It's super simple to write that. So,
I think that these sort of, I'll call them chit chats,
yeah.
little things that somebody comments, whether it's an asterisk or a yes or no or a number, anything that gets somebody into the comments. What happens? Remember the world where we went to cocktail parties or we went to mixers and events, and we just walked up to somebody, "Hi, Shelly, my name's Dane. How are you? Oh, I'm fine. Are you enjoying the event?" We do chit chat, right? We
Mhm.
just say, "Oh, that lunch was good," or "It wasn't good," or whatever it was. And then over time, we talk about different topics, and we may talk about business, we may talk about something, but we're starting some sort of connection,
Right. It's the
personal or
weather chat,
professional.
right? It's the
Yeah.
how's the weather where you're at, or like, yeah.
And what I see when channels do that and they ask just like you said, just the super simplest question, just anything to get somebody chatting, you actually start to see them, "Hi," and they go, "Wow, Shelly commented on my 58 degrees in Minnesota." I feel something
I
about
feel
that. I don't know
seen.
what
I
it
feel
is.
heard. I feel acknowledged. And that's what we all want.
Yeah, but isn't that really how we begin, our friendship, you
Yes.
know?
Yes. It's the
That
chips and salsa before we order the entree. This is the small talk. This is the yeah, this is it.
Yeah, and it's difficult to do that in a YouTube video, particularly when like you said, "What's the number one takeaway
Ugh.
that you
Right?
had?"
Even hearing it, you're just like, "Oh, I feel heavy. I feel like I don't wanna do that," right? But if it's something like silly, like, "Do you prefer dogs or cats?" And someone's like, "No, no one said goldfish," or whatever it is, It's really easy for something like that. So, even if you had an entire list of them, you could probably generate a spreadsheet, and I'm sure someone else out there has if you Google it. You can be like, what are some chit-chatty type of icebreaker type conversations that you could start
I
with anyone?
let's just give us some more because these are really great, if you don't mind giving them up. And by the way, hello, James Pruitt and others.
Hello. I mean,
And so
even something silly like, "What's your favorite day of the week?" Mine's Monday because I'm always raring to go whatever it is, like something like that. Or like if you had, one cupcake that you could, eat for the rest of your life, what would it be? Or what's your favorite flavor of cupcake? Or do you believe that pineapple belongs on pizza? I mean, even something controversial like that. Are you Oxford comma or not? Let's say if you're a book club or, something like that, or they actually understand the difference of when to use Oxford comma. People are very up in arms about when to use it, when not, or be like, what's your favorite color? Or, do you have any funny nicknames that you had growing up? Or what year did you graduate? Or whatever. You could have something like that. Or how long have you been with your significant other? Or, and then you got someone like single for life in the chat. It's always that. It's always something very simple and generic that can go out to anybody.
that is,
Or are you light mode or dark mode? Do you believe in the dark side? What's your favorite cookie? Oh my gosh, we could go on forever.
oh, this is really opening me up because this is an area I really have not focused on. I haven't taught it a lot. I keep trying to do more of it, but I didn't really have a textbook on this. I didn't. Who's the world guru? Are you the world guru? Is there somebody else
I have no
who I
idea.
should observe for how to
I
do
don't
better
know.
chit chat?
I'm not
This
sure.
is
Oh, you know
really
what? There is
great.
someone that I would think about. He has a channel. It's like how to have charisma or like how to be charismatic. And a lot of the time it's about making
Charisma on
small talk.
command.
Charisma on command, yeah. It's about
Oh,
making
is that
small
it?
talk with the person that you're talking with and making it about them or
Yes.
asking very simple questions and
Yes.
then moving on to the next. Yeah. He would probably be a go-to.
Okay. And by the way, Sanov says 77 degrees in Memphis.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
Um, okay, so now we've begun the chit chat and we've started over time to, they chat, they drop in every time we make a video. They say, great here in Memphis, whatever it is, and you get reminded that they're there. What's the next step? Do we want to get them on our email list? Do we want them to download something? Do we want them to join a Facebook group? Um, if it's a stronger business, do we want to route them directly into some sort of client call? What are some of the next steps that we do to bring them along to
It could
being
be any of the
customers?
above, or it could also be a live stream. It could be, because a lot of the time people love to hang around in a live stream. They like to see their name maybe pop up. They like to know that they're being acknowledged and answered. And once that relationship deepens, if there's something that you're talking about that they want, they'll sign up for your email list and gladly give you their email versus like, oh, I'm going to do this and then immediately I'm going to go and unsubscribe. You know what I mean? Um, so I feel like it's just more. It's just more. And instead of like the how hot is it in Memphis today? It's also remembering that, Sanalv is from Memphis. And then if there's something cool about Memphis that's happening, like, hey, isn't there a music festival that's happening there this weekend? Are you going to that? Now I remember her. There's something interesting, and I'm wanting to know more about her life. And that's more important to her than me the next time being like, hey, how many likes does this video have? So you start to see the same names and build those relationships the more that you see them, comment with them, and then maybe even invite them into a live stream or take the next step with, do you want to do a Zoom call? Do you want to do a consultation? Do you want, whatever else it is that you're doing, whether it's an email list or beyond.
And even after someone has gone down that path and you maybe they've called for a coaching call or some sort of introductory call, even so, you still want them to be watching your YouTube videos, even though now they're a customer. It still strengthens the bond and the ritual, even if they don't talk to you except for your 30-minute call every week as a client. But there's this ritual, just like having coffee with a friend. You want them to continue that. You want them to still be involved, right? It's not over. The
No,
job's not done. The channel still needs to be there to reinforce that relationship.
yeah, and you should still care about them after you have, let's say, a consultation or a call, because it may just be that, like, maybe you met with them and you have a 5-week coaching program, but they're not ready yet because they're not financially able or they have a job that wasn't going to work with that schedule.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean that, further nurturing that relationship, talking with them, they might be ready 6 months from now. It's kind of the same with real estate agents. A lot of the time, it's like, I'm not ready to move yet, or, with headhunters for big tech companies, because a lot of people have to be like, oh, I have to be here for a year, I've got this sign-on bonus, I have to make sure I wait it out. They remember, though, the recruiter that comes back and says, hey, it's been 6 months, I want to pop back in here, restart this conversation, how you feeling now? That
Mhm.
type of thing. Even after someone says no to you, can be a very good indicator of if they would want to be and continue to work with you or have a relationship with you. So if I have a one-on-one with a coaching client, I still want to check in with them, even if they don't want to sign up for 5 weeks of coaching with me. I can be like, hey, that thing that we talked about, did you try it? Did you implement it? What did you learn? Still have conversations with them, because they may be ready later, they may not, but they may work with someone else who's like, hey, I'm thinking I need a consultation. And they're like, I had a great experience with, you should contact Shelly or whoever, whatever it is.
And there's it certainly has been demonstrated to be true that you can continue now that you've won them over on YouTube. You can continue to be a part of their life if they're on other platforms as well. I don't necessarily think that it's great to drive people to YouTube or away from YouTube. You know, if you're on one platform because you feel in the vibe to be on that platform, you're not really leaving that platform. It's that's not really a good use of your time to get someone to jump too often from one to another, other than, we're having a course and, sure, or advertise on one platform or another. Do you agree or disagree that you should, A, still communicate with people on other social media platforms, but B, not try to get them to jump from one to the other?
Yeah, I think it's important to meet them where they are, and if they are strictly Facebook only and they're never on, YouTube or Snapchat or TikTok, you can't be like, "Well, one of the conditions of working with me is you have to be on TikTok." And like, no, just
Do we have
make
to do
sure
that
you do your
nesting? You
job
have
as a
to work with
distribution and
me.
it's everywhere. Exactly. And, meet people like you're imposing what you want instead of how they live their life, and that's very different. So
Well, this was a great conversation, and thanks to everyone in the chat for their great comments. Shelly Saves the Day. How can people find you on YouTube, social media, Amazon, wherever you are?
please come find me and hang out with me on YouTube under Shelly Saves the Day. On Amazon, it's the Shelly Nathan Influencer page. And on Twitter, it's Shelly Saves the.
And I'm Dane Golden. You can follow me on this YouTube channel, which we're streaming this from, in addition to Shelly's various channels. Mine is VidiUp, VIDIUP. And this podcast is at videomarketingvalue.com. And you can friend me on LinkedIn. Why not? I do a lot of chatting on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Love to do business networking and chit chat about what the temperature is in
in
your
Memphis.
city. And until next week, here's to helping you help your customers through video.